Alright, hello everyone! So, I wanted to record something a bit more long form again, and so the idea behind this was just a suggestion I got, which is, what if you could change one thing on every single weapon in the game? The catch being, I only have to change one thing. Like if I want to fix range RNG, I can't do an intensify action curve and an RNG reduction. I have to do one. The second thing is that every single weapon has to get a change, and I'm adding that the change cannot be weapon gets a new kit. I think that's just a bit of an easy answer for a lot of options here. That's basically all the rules. I'll do subs and specials too at the end, but we can start with main weapons and just go down the line, I guess. So, Sploosh. Honestly, it's really hard to find anything that Sploosh would want adjustments for. It has a little bit more range now. It paints a bit further away. It has good mobility. Its sub-weapon is pretty cheap. Its ink efficiency is good. Its points for special are about as low as they reasonably could be on a shooter like this. So I guess my only change is I'll be going with a slight run speed increase. I do think its strafe speed right now is pretty good anyway, but this is the only thing I can reasonably say to make better about it, to help it get in a bit more. It's just strafing a little bit faster. Pretty much all Sploosh sets I see for, like, this weapon is, like, swim and run speed stacking. So I think getting a little bit better mobility out of it would be good. Very similar to what Zap already got, but I think this would be good. Next up is Junior. This one's pretty simple. I'd make Junior a 190p big bubbler, or I would do a slight ink efficiency nerf. I never really settled on either of them. I think an ink efficiency nerf would be better for the game, but it risks hurting newer players a bit more, so let's go with 190p bubble, so that way we can leave this kit the same. 190 would be fine. I think that can be the default. I don't like the amount of bubbles it gets, so I've changed that. Arrow spray. So I've talked about this weapon before in my spray shooters video. I want it to be a little more distinct compared to other shooters. So my idea for this would be that it's basically an inverse of what most shooters are, whereas instead of being really accurate on the ground, it'd be in the air. So when you jumped, you would have perfect accuracy. That'd be your combat mode. And then when you're on the ground, you wouldn't. So basically, if you're in the air, you got better jump spread, and you could, try to utilize that to fight in a different way, since it obviously messes with your mobility as a shooter to be jumping. So you'd have to mix between, being grounded, having really good mobility, and jumping and having the better spread. Be a good way to make this a bit more of an advanced weapon. 52. Pretty simple. I'd go with an ink efficiency nerf. I know this weapon isn't the greatest right now, but I still think its healthiness factor with wall is just a little bit too bad right now. I still think that this is, not fun to deal with. I don't think a weapon with a shield should be... Flash wall weapons and obviously Brellas are pretty good at having ink efficiency problems. That way you can't just spam shield. This is the one exception to it, and I feel like it should be fixed at least a little bit, so no specific amount here, just slightly nerf the ink efficiency. Alright, so next up is the splatter shots. Now, honestly, I don't really think there's a whole lot you can change with shot. It's one of the most balanced main weapons in the game. So, of course, this is one where we're going to look at the weapon kits, and I guess the biggest offender here is Tenatech splatter shot at 190p. It is a little bit cheap of a tri-strike spammer that kind of flies under the radar because Neo Splash exists. So, yeah, it could be 200p instead. I think that'd be a fair change. Kraken is 190 as well on the other shot kit. However, I feel the difference here is that Kraken is a transformation special, so at least when you become the Kraken, you can farm another special for 8 seconds. Whereas with Strike, that's 1 second until you farm another. And so I think because of this cooldown, this one isn't as important to change, and obviously Kraken is just a weaker special. So yeah, I'd say T-Tech. Zap would be the opposite change. I've talked about this for a bit, but I think something that would help the short-range cooler weapons is if they got more cooler, since they have more inherent risk of dying with it. So 190p and Zap would be what I'd want to see. I feel like that'd give it a more reasonable shot of seeing competitive use and give it more utility over longer range ones. We have yet another points for special one with Splash. This one applying to both Splash-O-Matics. I'm still counting this as one change. It's my video, so whatever. And if I'm going with that, then you could probably guess what Splash is going to be. Again, another pretty balanced weapon. And even if you have V-Splash, Crab was already recently changed. And if it's going to be 200p on T-Tech, this should obviously be 210 for strikes. This should have never gone below 210 in the first place. I know it's not as popular a weapon anymore, but I still believe the special output of Neo Splash is it's just too much. We got to tone that back. Nova. My change to Nova is that Nova would get better RNG as it continuously fires. Kind of the same thing we saw in the tweet when the weapon came out about its spread not getting worse. So that's my idea. Instead of the spread getting gradually worse, the spread would get better. So eventually Nova would be a nearly perfect accuracy weapon if you just held it down, encourage strafing around the weapon, give it a little bit more of a unique identity. It'd be something. Splattershot Pro. I'd give this weapon a very slight range increase. I think that right now, Pro's in a pretty good spot, but it could just fight a little bit better. It's hard to do that without overlapping on other options. Like, I don't think you could do a fire rate buff after all of its other buffs. But I think if the range was in between its current range and where 96 is, it'd probably be fine. So just a smidge more range. Basically, the same change they did with shot and spray shooters and all that, I think Pro should get the same change, basically. So that's what I'd like to see. 96 I'm pretty fine with right now. My change will be going from 210 to 200p. I think it could be a little bit cheaper for Kraken, given its ink efficiency and like weaker paint. I don't think 210 is necessary. Kraken's not an insane special, so I wouldn't mind if it got a little more of it. I debated doing an RNG reduction, but I feel like that is an important part of the weapon's identity a little bit, so let's just go slightly cheaper Kraken. Jet Sculpture. This is a hard one to change because without a weapon kit, you can't really change it in a healthy way without making it more of a spammer. The idea I had would be a strafe speed increase of about 10%. You could use this to stay away from people, but my idea is more make the weapon more mobile when it's fighting you. Make it have a bit of an easier time skirmishing, due to the fact that it can just move a little bit faster. So now we're on L3, and L3 is actually going to talk about L3, Squiffer, and Mini, because our change is going to be weight classes, making all of them from middleweight to lightweight. So for those who don't know, lightweight weapons tend to move a little bit faster in walking and swimming than normal weight weapons, and heavyweight weapons are a little bit slower in both of those areas. L3 is the light nozzle, Mini is the shortest range splatling, and Squiffer is the shortest range charger. I feel like all these are fairly good candidates to be lightweight weapons. Now, fun fact, it doesn't seem like Splatoon 3 has changed around with what weight class a weapon is, but I really do feel like that this is ones that should be pretty easy. H3, I think I'd just take off 2 frames of end lag. I think it needs a little bit more consistency. I think it's a little too difficult for the value it gets, and we can't exactly give it damage up again. So I feel like making it just a little bit faster would be a bit more healthy. So it's still incentivized to go for the one tap, but you'd have like a little bit more of an opportunity window and you'd be a little more mobile. It'd still be much slower than L3. That'd still be 10 frames slower. So I feel like that'd feel fine. Squeezer. I was stuck a little bit on what nerf I'd want to revert for this, or if I'd want to do 210 special, but I think I settled on the strafe speed. It was nerfed by 8%. I think you could give about half of it back. It should still definitely be slower than Splattershot, but I wouldn't mind it being a little bit faster again. So I think just buff the strafe speed back a little bit would be a good way to start giving it a bit more power back. All right, Carbon's gonna be the start of a trend. So Carbon, they've been continuously making 10 points for special cheaper repeatedly. I think they should just keep going with that exclusively for Carbon. Like, nothing else should ever be below 160 except Vanilla Carbon. So what if Vanilla Carbon just got to, let's do 150p right now. Let's say V Carbon's 150, and then if it doesn't get picked, you make it 140, and then 130, and you just keep going, right? Until it gets picked, right? I'm advocating for V Carbon to be the only 150p weapon because Zipcaster is cool. Let's just make its output absurd. Roller. Another one that I was really stuck on, pretty good spot, but I guess my pick would be Kraken can go to 160p. This weapon has abysmal Kraken output even at 170 because it doesn't paint well, it doesn't have a painting sub. Kraken's a transformation special, it takes a bit. So 160 I think is fine here. I'm okay with 160 on very low painting weapons right now, so I think this is a good candidate. Why not make it a little cheaper? Dynamo Roller. My change for Dynamo is to increase the paint by like around 5 to 10%. This isn't a surprise. Look at Dynamo's paint, guys. Look at it and laugh. Aha, Dynamo doesn't paint. What do you know? Buff it, right? We all talked about this for like 6 years, so nothing to say. Flings a Roller. Flings a Roller is kind of interesting. It's pretty close to being a good weapon. I think what I'd do is slightly increase the horizontal flick kill range, just by like a little bit, like 3 to 5%. It's not bad right now, but I feel like Flings is a little more inconsistent than it should be, and I think the horizontal flick is the best way to make it like a little more aggressive. So I think the horizontal kill range could be a little better. Like that I think should probably kill, right? Like that should kill, stuff like that, you know. Just give it a little bit more lenient spacing is all I'm asking. Now originally Big Swig did 30 and 70 damage. This does like 40 minimum now. We buffed that a lot, but the maximum is still 70. I'd like the maximum to be buffed to 80. That would mean that the max hit would combo more with other weapons. Its damage curve would be better. Bomb defense wouldn't break like outside of a lethal bomb plus a horizontal. Like look how much damage I'm doing just this far away, right? Look how close you have to be to do damage. So the damage curve on this weapon is really bad. Like if I flick from here, like around here, I want to still consistently be doing like 50 plus damage. So like, I think if you buffed it to 80, it improved the overall damage curve. And also just if you get up close, I feel like it'd be more likely you could use this as a kill option, make it a little bit easier. Like with Swig, I'm looking at the curve a little bit more. So I think tap shot should do 35 damage. I think 3 tapping people like this is fine, wouldn't be optimal. And then it would improve the damage curve a little bit, incentivize partials a little more rather than like purely full charging the weapon. That'd make it a little bit better. Just make it a little more likely it's doing damage to work with people. I don't think it's inherently that complicated. So, if I could do a trade-off change, I'd nerf its whale output by +10 to compensate, but we can't do that today. GoTuber. I've talked about this before. I want its charge hold to be a little more distinct, so very simple idea. GoTuber has 2 amazing subs, so I think you should be able to, like, use your sub and keep your charge hold. Just that kind of mechanic would be cool. Like, if I have a full charge, I can, like, throw a twerp. Oh, I found someone, and boom, instantly shoot my full charge at them. Or I can use my fizzy move, pop out, immediate full charge shot. Like, the weapon would flow so much better. If they're gonna make GoTuber stay its own weapon, I think it needs to be more distinct. I think that's a good way to make its charge hold special. Charger. This is a hard one to buff, but it should definitely be buffed because it doesn't see a whole lot of use when it has this kit. So I'm gonna go with a very small change and just up its object damage by about 5 to 10%. Just make it a little bit better at breaking like Crab or Booyah or Bubble or anything. I feel like that would be noticeable even if it's really small. It's a safe way to make the weapon slightly better. E-Leader. Another weapon where I need a safe way to make it slightly better. So let's go with 200p Wave Breaker. I don't have a problem with 210 Wave. But given the state of Wavebreaker, I wouldn't mind if it got a little bit more special given the cooldown. And I'd rather fight this leader than this one because it's better and it's less annoying. So like, I feel like incentivizing this kit is a good thing to do for leader's health on the game over this one. 10 points for special cheaper wave is fine. Pencil, I'll speed pass because I've said this change numerous times, which is have its damage range, not its paint range. Paint range can stay the same. Its paint output is fine. Have its damage range match Splat Charger instead of Splatter Scope. Reduce it down a little bit. I feel like that'd be a good way to keep the main weapon power mostly intact, but its matchups against other anchors is just a little too much. And I feel like considering it's 220 with 2 paint nerfs and it's still way more common than edit, given how good edit itself is, it's kind of fair to nerf it a little bit more. But hopefully that's enough. Next up is Slosher. Guess what we're gonna do here, guys? We have another 160 caster weapon in my eyes. I think they should go from 180 to 160 so you can get a lot of caster. I don't know if that'd be enough to let it to use, but it'd be cool if this was 160 cast. So, why not? Let's continue our trend with that. Tri-Slosher, easy one as well. Tri-Slosher Nouveau should not be 210. I would buff this down to 190. Help with the cooler output, like with Zap. Maybe even 180 would be fine, but I'm going to play it safe and say 190. So this would help out with its cooler output. I think that'd be fair. Not much to say here. This would be a cool option. Machine, another one that has been talked about a lot. I think it should get 3 frames of its 5-frame nerf back. Honestly, I'm even debating 4 frames with how good I want main weapons to be, but 3 is a safe pick. This being like 3 frames faster to continuously fire, I feel like would make the weapon a lot more fair, help a lot with its fighting capabilities, give you a little more specials. It'd be a little more ink hungry, but I think that's fine. I think that's a worth trade-off. Explosher. I think that Explo is also in a pretty good spot, like main weapon-wise. Its shots could be a little faster. You do have to read your opponents a bit, so that can be kind of tricky. So I think make it like 30%, 33% faster. Just a little bit, really. But I think making it slightly easier to track opponents and hit follow-up shots would help with the added mobility this game has in general compared to S2. So that'd be my change for that, especially hitting tacticaler players. Blob. Blob's one I normally do a full rework on, so it's, again, smaller to get a small change here, but I think I'd just go with increasing the object damage by about 10%. It used to be very good at object damage before it got nerfed in S2. I feel like that nerf was a little unnecessary, or at least it went too far, so I'm all for giving this weapon some more of its object damage back. There's a lot of objects in this meta. I feel like that'd be a good shift for it. Wouldn't really fix the weapon too much. You definitely need more of a rework for that, but I feel like that's a mostly harmless change. For Dread, I would buff its range by like 3%, like its damage range. I would want it to just be slightly better at fighting without changing its support attributes. Would be the only real change I want, which is very hard to do. Originally, I thought about making it a little faster, like maybe having the startup be faster, but that buffs its paint. Most combat buffs would also buff the weapon's paint. This is one of the few things you could do where it wouldn't also buff its paint output, because I think Dread's paint is insane, and you would need more than one change to adjust it, so that's what I'd go with. Just like a tiny bit more range. Very slight. Dread's in a pretty good spot. Just this, I guess. Not even this, like here. Hitting more consistently would be good. Just something that small would be what I'd go with. Next up is Splattlings. We already talked about Mini, so we can jump to Heavy. Heavy's in a really good spot main weapon-wise. This is a kit problem, so it's hard to think of something that I would really change for it. But I guess if I had to think of something, it would be its old damage. Heavy used to do 32 damage. I don't really see why it can't do 32 damage again, or at least 31 damage, so I'd buff it to either 31 or 32. If you want to make it different from Jet, I guess, then you could make it 31. But like a little bit better damage, I think is fine. Don't see the harm. Helps with the HP stuff, which I feel like Splatling should be good into. Hydra Splatling. I think Hydra should have its first ring charge decreased by 5 frames. So make it a little bit easier to get a full charge. Just a little bit. It's kind of hard to mess with Hydra, because it's a very polarizing weapon. But I think just generally reducing the charge time is the best way to go about buffing it. I think like a little bit faster on the first ring would help. They also did that with Heavy and with Mini already. So if they're thinking about doing that with the other Splatlings, I feel like that'd be a fine change to do with Hydra. So I'll go with that. Next up is Ballpoint Splatling, which is really tough to think about which change I'd want reverted. I have 2 candidates here, which is one would be restore the old long-range RNG before the nerfs, like make jump shooting really accurate. It's like, look at this. Even grounded RNG is a little more inaccurate, but this isn't that big a deal. But I'd really like the jump RNG to be accurate because you don't strafe that fast. My other idea would be making the short-range mode strafe faster. Again, revert the change, make it back to, I think it's the same as wiper speed normally, but run speed would change it. If I had to pick one, I'd go with the short-range buff because I think playing into Ballpoint's flexibility is a little bit better. I think it's more interesting to have Ballpoint there, and we've buffed Mini enough to where I think Ballpoint with a short-range mode that's faster would still be worse than Mini by a good margin, so I feel like it'd be balanced. So yeah, I just buffed the strafe speed back to what it used to be. At least like the first nerf it got, not, you know. It'd be cool to have it just be the same strafe speed as normally. That'd be cool. Nautilus is an easy one. I'd make it 200p for splashdown. I don't know why it's 210. It doesn't need to be 210. I think that would be a fair change for it. Let it get a little more splashdown. Edit Splatling. Really hard to find a change to edit Splatling because I would do a buff, but like what do you buff about a weapon this good? So I'm settling on jump RNG. 5% better jump RNG. Tiny change, make it a little more accurate in the air, that's it. That's all I can really think of. It's really hard to come up with something for edit. Blasters! First up is Luna Blaster. Guys, guess what trend we're continuing? 160p Zipcaster for the Luna Blaster is my change. I would like to see Luna have an even cheaper Zipcaster. What do you know? I'd like to see more zip on Luna. I think that'd be fun. I'm making all the zip weapons cheap. Flash Blaster. So, in Splatoon 1, Rapid Blaster's damage varied depending on how you hit the radius, kind of like how normal blasters are. That didn't work for Rapid, but I thought it'd be really interesting for Clash. So Clash's blast radius, instead of dealing 30, will deal 25 to 35 damage depending on how close you are. So that way, if you're hitting the inside of the radius, you can 3-shot people, and it would be a bit better at comboing with the direct hit. In an ideal world with multiple changes, I'd have the direct do more damage. But in this case, it's just, if you up close indirect, it'll do, you know, it'll 3-shot. But if you hit with the outside radius, it's still a 4-shot, but you're actually doing less damage than you would before. Not enough to break any damage combos, but this would prioritize just a little more skillful Clash gameplay, I believe. And I feel like a potential 3-shot indirect Clash with a smaller radius could be good. So I think this mechanic would be a good way to make Clash more different, and it could work. That said, honorable mention to fixing Clash painting under itself better, painting like actual lines. But I think the other change is more interesting, so I went with that. Blaster. I think its jump RNG could go from 10 to 8. This has the worst jump RNG in the Blaster class. And it's mostly because it's really fast when swimming. Like, this is basically rapid speed. And that's true, but I feel like 10 is still a little much. So, I think it could be reduced to 8, make it a little bit better. Range Blaster. Another jump RNG reduction. I know Cooler and IA exist, but I feel like the Blaster RNG could still be improved a bit. So this would be 6 degrees instead of 8. It'd be what Luna got. So that it wouldn't need as much Intensify action and jump RNG would be a little better. I think that'd be a good way to incentivize more on directs since the blast radius was reduced. I think buffing its ability to get directs could be pretty helpful. Rapid Blaster. This meant to go alongside Luna and Mini. I forgot. Oh well. It's lightweight. I think that regular Rapid could be lightweight and differentiate it from Rapid Pro more. I think it being faster is a good thing, so why not just have Rapid be a little bit quicker, need a little bit less gear dependency as well. That's a big thing for it because it wants gear for its Torp and its Jet, so needing less swim speed would be huge, I feel like. Also, another honorable mention for 190 Jetpack, but I think the lightweight actually does matter more. Given the state of Inkjet not being that great, I think that's more important to buff. So Rapid Pro's up next, and this is a pretty obvious one. The Rapid Blaster Winter is 200p Tacticooler. We've had our fair share of time with this, and I can safely say it takes too long to get the Tacticooler. I really wish there was a way to not be taking too long, and so I think the easiest way to fix that would be by making this 180p. Now, it might seem a little bit crazy to make the jump to 180, but I feel like the goal of this weapon should be that it should be able to function as the single cooler on your comp. I think that's the best thing for allowing more comps to be picked going forward. And while 190 might be enough, I'm not totally confident in it. I think this weapon's good for the game overall, so I'd like to see it drop to 180. S-Blast. I'm still unsure at this time if S-Blast needs a nerf or how I would nerf it. You know, maybe it'll be different later down the line when this video comes out, but as of time of recording, I'm not sure what to do. So, what about this one being 170? Play into the fact that it has a sprinkler, make it 170 slider to give it a little more special to play around, to make up for the sub. That'll never make it see use over the vanilla one anyway, so why not? 170 slider. Ink Brush. Ink Brush is a pretty simple one. It's not that often that this plays an impact, but I still think it should be changed. Ink Brush's fall off can do as low as 7.5 damage. Keep in mind, up close, it does a max of 30. I think that's way too ridiculous. So I think Brush's minimum damage should be doubled from 7.5 to 15. So it should do at least 15 damage minimum. Just to help its consistency a little bit. Again, it's a very tiny change, but like, it's kind of insane. Octo Brush, I think, needs a bit of a better damage curve. Its kill range is just a little weak. So I would buff its max damage from 40 to 45. That way the curve is a little bit better. Mainly just to make its 3-shot range a little larger. Because I feel like its 3-shot range could be a bit better, given, you know, Tri-Slosher in the game. Even Paintbrush's range is a lot more compared to it. So I would just do that. 45 damage. Also helps to give it a bit of better DPS. That'd be helpful. I don't want to overlap with the buff idea I did before in that video, so my change would be double the strafe speed. It would still be super slow with a doubled strafe speed, but I feel like that would help the weapon's mobility feel a little bit less terrible. If you're not going to fundamentally change the weapon, I feel like this should be a little faster, just to help keep up with people. So that would be my change for Paintbrush. I think that's fine. Very small change. Dapple Dooley, another tough one to find basically any change. I went with ground RNG from 6.8 to 6. Making it a little bit more accurate would be fine. It's not really a big problem because, I mean, your range is this. Doesn't really spread that far, but I figure making it a little bit better, a little more consistent can't be harmful. Dooley, 3% further dodge rolls, pretty simple. It'd help keep up with mid-range better. It'd make it a bit more of a fighter. Dooley's pretty good right now. I don't really think it needs much, but I think a little bit of extra dodge roll distance would go a long way to just making it a little more consistent. Again, mainly against, like, more midline heavy comps or S-Blast if you're trying to, like, double dodge roll out of S-Blast range. It'd make it a bit better at doing that kind of thing. Dooley Squelchers. I think the RNG on this is too terrible. I would buff it by 25%, reverting a very old nerf, but it's grounded instead of jump RNG. So that would make its grounded RNG actually quite good with a 25% buff. You know, air RNG, you'd still need IA or whatever, but that's fine. Like, this is already a slow-killing 4-shot. It doesn't need to also be inaccurate. It should be accurate, I feel. Like, look at that. This is ridiculous, man. Next up is Glooga, always an interesting weapon to talk about balance-wise. And in Splatoon 2, Glooga had something that couldn't be done with Splatoon 3 Glooga, which is if you stacked enough main power-up, a shot plus a rolled shot could combo for a kill. This is hard to make happen with normal Glooga because Glooga is set at doing 52.5 damage because its name in other languages is Kelvin 525. That's supposed to be the reference to the damage number. It's a hot glue gun. However, no one said anything about increasing the standard fire damage, so why not just give it a bump of 12 to 48 damage? Again, the idea is if you're a glue gun, you can now, like, poke with the standard fire, and if you get a hit, you can use that and try to follow up with the rolled mode. I feel like there'd be some cool utility. Obviously, it'd still be a 3-shot versus a 2-shot. I feel like there'd be some differences there, and it would still function in largely the same identity, but I think this will make Glooga just a little bit more flexible at working with itself, and I found that a really interesting option that just we can't really see because of the lack of MPU in this game. So I'd really like to see that tried out again. Guess what we're doing with Tetradoolies, guys? 170 caster for Tetradoolies, minus 20 on the caster, more caster, yes. You have a sprinkler, so like what are you gonna do other than getting more caster? If you had more caster, it'd be interesting. Caster Tetra is fun. All the zip weapons should be cheaper, except Stamper. Yay. Dowsers. This is the problem with Dowsers, guys. Dowsers becomes a good weapon with one change. Fix it. Fix it! And yeah, you can make it better if you paint tech. Like, you can do this. And it's not as bad. But, like, this is still bad, man. Fix it! 10% better paint. Dowser should paint better. It should need to do this to paint. And even this paint could be better. It would also benefit from the 10% paint buff, and I'm fine with that. If Dowser painted, it'd be a game changer. Legit game changer. Custom Dowser would be so interesting for comps. Brellas! Let's speedrun these, because you guys already know what we're doing. Give it 90 damage back. And to clarify what I mean by the Brella damage, I don't actually need it to be 90 damage. I need 6 pellets to kill. Right now it takes 7 pellets to kill because they do 16.2 damage. They used to do 18 damage per pellet. I don't care what the number set at exactly. All I care about is that it is 6 pellets to kill instead of 7. I think that helps with the consistency a lot. Revert the damage nerf it got in Splatoon 2. Put it back. Undercover. Give it 48 damage. Remove the 40 damage cap. Pellets do 12 damage. You can hit a max of 4. It should do 48 damage. That way 2-shot shield can be a thing. And then Recycle Brella. Again, I don't want to overlap my Recycle concept. So 150 HP shield is fine. That'd be 300 when launched instead of 200. That would be a lot better, I feel like. Recycle's the only one that doesn't have damage problems. So a little bit of a faster shield would be good. Honorable mention to a fire rate buff. I debated making the fire rate slightly faster, but I think shield HP is the most important thing. I've said this before. I think that the Tri-Stringer zoom-in should get a little closer. Like, the bolts should be a little closer together so that it's a bit easier to hit the one-shot when you're fully charged. I think it's just a little too inconsistent. I wouldn't mind that attribute of the weapon being a little better, making it easier to hit max damage. I think it would help a lot for this weapon. It should definitely be more consistent. Reflex is pretty close to being good. I would say just give its charge shot like 3 to 5% more range. This is another candidate for the 3% range buff a few things got recently. I think its charge shot would be perfect for it. The range isn't bad, but I feel like if it had a little bit more to space around, it'd be better. Just for its consistency. To help it, like, have 2 shots against weapons before it gets ran down instead of 1 would help a lot. Reflex is so cool. I really want to see this weapon more. So I think this change would help for both of its kits. And then last up is Wellstring. I think that the amount of time it's spent with the 5 bolts next to each other should be increased, so that it's a little easier to keep all the bolts close together, because that timing window is kind of small. So I feel like having that timing window be a little larger would help its consistency quite a lot. Next up, Wiper and Stamper. I'm giving them the same buff, and I am going to buff these two. I think it's fine. I would make their normal slashes like 3% more ink efficient. That's it. Same for Stamper. Just a tiny buff. I feel like these could be a little bit less ink hungry, mainly Stamper. I think that'd be fine. I'd rather buff these weapons than nerf them. I think that's a simple way to make them slightly better. Just have a little less downtime, mainly so that both of them could use their subs a bit more. Because I think Wiper having access to Torp and Stamper Burst is very important right now, so that's what I would change with them. And then last one is Decav. I would make Decav's Melee Charge Slash 5% smaller. Just a little bit less wide. Like, not vertically, just horizontally. So, like, 50% smaller to hit the one-shot range. That's it. Tiny nerf, because the skill floor of this one-shot is a little too low. That's what I would do. And that's all of the main weapons. Let's move to subs and specials now. First up, Line Marker. What a surprise this is going to be. The line should do 20 damage, half that of a direct hit. It would help a little bit. I think that the line doing damage would be fun. It's crazy that this hasn't been a buff yet. After all this time, and it can do damage in single player, and it's a bad sub. We still aren't going to do it yet. Come on. Come on. We got to get there eventually. Now, honorable mention with Line Marker, another thing that I would generally hope for is 35% dart instead of 40. Having it be a little cheaper, I think would be useful, just so you can use it more easily, especially given that it was given a tri-stringer bow and it's on rapid. So, like, its best options are not super ink hungry, but wouldn't mind a cheaper sub. I feel like that would differentiate itself from Burst Bomb more. But it would probably have to come with an adjustment of the sub-saver line to make triple dart not something you could run super easily. And so that would fall into the 2 changes category. That's why I went with the line damage, but I figure it's worth talking about at least. I had a hard time going for a mist buff, all things considered, but I guess I'd go with like a little more throwing range. That differentiated from bombs a little bit, make it go like 3 to 5% further. So, travel a little faster is fine too if you buff it via velocity. You know, velocity to equal range kind of thing. It going a little further would just give it a bit more use cases, make it a bit easier to throw mist in the right locations. I feel like it's fine as a small change to buff it. I would buff the sub-saver curve for Beacon, because Beacon's really expensive to put down, but sub-saver isn't really worth it on it at all. Like, it's probably one of the weakest sub-saver options. But I think that if you buff the curve so that you could only use a little bit of sub-saver, it might be something people think about, and it'll make it easier to set up a lot of beacons. So I'd like to see that kind of buff where it takes less sub-saver to reach the same effect kind of deal. Would be cool. I think that Sprinkler could be a little bit cheaper. A lot of people use this for movement, or if you set it up to paint or on ink-hungry weapons like Dynamo, just have it be 55% instead of 60. Just a little bit cheaper, I think, is fine. Doesn't need to be 60. That make it a little bit easier to use. That's all I'd do. I think Sprinkler is mostly fine on the right weapons. So we'll go with that. Just a small ink consumption buff. Curling is just a small thing. I want curling to charge just a little bit faster. Have curling charge like 33% faster. Just so it's a bit easier to use a partially charged curling without as much downtime. I think that'd be a cool way to add a bit more depth to the sub. Because partial charge curlings with the bigger hitbox are kind of useful, but it's like... Damn, it takes a while. It takes a while to get there. So, I feel like it would help it if it was a little bit faster for that. Very small buff for mine. I would up the location time from 5 to 6 seconds. Mostly just to offset the effectiveness of one sub of bomb defense against it. Since I feel like only a 4-second-ish location time from mine is like really pathetic. So just 1 second higher offsets that a little bit. I think that'd make it a bit better. Point sensor, another one I've talked about it a billion times. I think that point sensor should show the special progress on the top of the screen. So if you locate someone, you can see on the top of the screen how close they are to special. You can see the meter building, and you can see like that kind of progress a bit. Be a cool way to give sensors some extra information. Honorable mention as well goes to the recon effect, where you can see a main weapon on the map. I'm fine with either of them, really. I just want sensors' location to be uniquely better in some way than the other location effects in the game. Autobomb. This is a small one, but I think Autobomb is good for more ink-hungry weapons because it's cheaper. But it does have a lot of white ink frames. It's been buffed before, but I think you could buff it again. I'd say like 5 less white ink frames. Just make it a little faster for you to recover your ink, so it's a bit better utility for options like Brella, for instance. Like, just generally your ink-hungry stuff would get more value out of this bomb. Splash Wall. We finally got a nerf. I would nerf the deployment speed by about 5 frames or nerf the HP by about 50. I think that wall could be panicked a little too fast. That said, a speed nerf could really hurt it. So I think for this video, I'll go with 50 less HP, 750 instead of 800, so you can't stall with it as much. Sorry, 52, you're just getting hurt in this. Spoiler alert, Whale probably gets a nerf too, but I think that unfortunately that's just all the annoying attributes happen to be stuck on one weapon for main subs and specials, which sucks. Torpedo! Really simple. Bring back the Splatoon 2 bounce physics. It bounced better in that game. It was really cool, and now it's worse. Just fix it. It's as simple as that. Suction Bomb. So, Suction Bomb has this really annoying thing where if it slightly peeks out of a wall, let me show it here. You see how it kills because it's barely peeked out? It can be really hard to see depending on the angle. I think that suction should need at least 10% of the surface area of the bomb to be peeking out in order to hit through a wall. So, that would be my change, basically. Make it a little more rare for that. I'd also nerf Splat Bomb a little bit, just a little bit. My change for this is that if you roll Splat Bomb off of a ledge, you see how fast it detonates at the bottom? Like, if you roll it and get most of it done? I feel like there should be an extra 5 frames. So, like, when it goes over the edge like this, like, whenever it falls from a surface and hits the floor, it should have 5 more frames minimum before it blows up. So there's a little more time to react to, like, a random Splat Bomb falling off a ledge that's about to blow up. I'm actually gonna buff Fizzy, because I feel like the nerf on it was kind of harsh. So my change is just let Fizzy go 3% further, just a little bit farther. Because it doesn't paint as much, it's not as good for paint spam. So that'd give the trail behind it a bit more utility. That could be useful for fighting. And then lastly, Burst Bomb. Inevitably has to get a nerf. I don't really know what you could do with it. So I'll just go with like 5 more whiting frames. It already has a lot more than S2. But 5 more is probably okay, just to tone down overall burst spam. I don't think you can make it 50% of your rank tank. I think that'd be kind of ridiculous. So let's go with that instead. I think that'd be fine. That's all the subs. Let's go with the specials. We'll start with Ink Fac. This is another one where I've repeatedly talked about, like, just let you cancel into the shot. So instead, a different change is I would buff Vacuum Speed. I would make it run 50% faster. So what if this vacuum was really mobile, had an easier time keeping up with players, was a bit harder to hit? I think that could be a cool way to change it. Could be a little annoying, like it'd make it better at Rainmaker Cheese and all that, but I think it would be interesting at least, and it would be more fun to use. It'd make you feel like you have more options while you're using the special. Next up is Screen. Let's assume Screen is fixed for this, by the way, because obviously my change would just be fixing it otherwise. That said, my change is still nerfing Screen. Again, I'm sorry, 52. I'm sorry, 52 players. I think Screen lingers way too long. In an ideal world with a rework, it would be like your team can see through the screen better, but it doesn't last as long. But since we have just one change, Screen will last 2 seconds shorter, is my change. I think Screen should be on the map less long. Again, if I could do multiple, I would allow your team to see through it as a big buff to compensate, but because I can't do that, I think it should just linger less long. Like, Screen is on screen forever, and then if you get hit by it toward the end, the nerfs on you are around for a while. It's just too annoying. I think the hitbox on Wavebreaker should be, 50% wider. Make it a little easier to get hit by it. Make it require more of a full jump to get over it. It wouldn't be that much larger. 50% sounds like a lot, but it's pretty small already. But I think they should do that, to be fair. Chump and Missile. I'm going to pair these two together. I think that Chump and Missile's cooldown should be reduced from 10 to 8 seconds. I'm fine with them having a cooldown, but it feels a little too long. I think the output of these specials is a bit too low, and it unfairly hurts most of the weapons that have them, besides like Orange Zap, since it's 170. So I would reduce it just slightly. I think that'd be fine. I think that Kraken's jump mode should be more resistant to knockback. So if you jump and you get shot at, it doesn't affect you as much. You can keep your momentum. Basically a bit of a trade-off after its charge speed nerf to incentivize using both modes and make it so that Kraken is a little bit more flexible between the two. And I think people prefer fighting the jump mode anyway because you can knock it back. So as long as the knockback reduction isn't too drastic, I think it'd be a good way to just make it a little bit better. You could also just make it only apply to the squid roll one, not the jump afterward, if you want to balance it that way. That's fine too. Ultra Stamp. I'm not going to give it full frontal invincibility given the stamp throw, but let's go with can protect you like 15% better. A little bit better protection is still fine for Stamp. Ink Storm. In Splatoon 2, you could use Ink Storm for a bit of a smoke screen. Ink Storm should be able to have a smoke screen effect again. It's kind of fun, it adds depth to the special. It's a unique way to utilize it, and it's way cooler than Screen. Sorry, Screen. Triple Splashdown. Another S2 revert. We have a few of these, don't we? Splashdown Super Jump should get reverted to Splatoon 2. It's so much smaller in this game. They should fix it. Super Jump Splashdown is terrible, and it should not be terrible. Killer Whale 5.1. I would revert the damage buff. I think this is the worst special design in the game by far these days. Much worse than Missile, honestly. I hate dying or taking damage because my teammate moved the same direction of me. My teammate behind me that I can't see. And I get that they can counterplay it better, but I really don't like how punished you are for teammates' mistakes with Whale. And I think it'd be okay, otherwise it'd still be okay. It is probably gutting it a bit too much. Ideally, you'd have a trade-off buff, but outside of the scope of this video. So yeah, if I would do like a random change versus nerfing the special, I would take nerfing it. I hate Whale. Reef Slider. Again, this is another one I'd like to do a rework, like with Whale, but in this case, you know, priority is nerf the unhealthy attribute. So to show this isn't just my bias against Whale, my change for Reef Slider would be that special power-up no longer increases pain. Completely removes Zone's Cheese. If I could do one change to Slider, I would do it, even if it's a nerf. Because Zone's Cheese with Slider is bad. Zuka! Startup should match Splatoon 1. I'm sorry, Zuka. Ideally, this would be a trade-off, but the startup is the last bullshit part of this special. I would definitely reduce it. It's not a huge problem anymore with all the nerfs it has, but I would still do it. Tri-Strike, talked about it before. Radius 7 to 6.5. Pretty simple. I like the Booyah glitch. I don't want to get rid of Booyah glitch. I actually like it. I think that's cool depth. Booyah Bomb max hold duration 9 to 7 seconds. There you go. Simple. Big Bubbler. I'm going to buff it in a cool way. I think that special power-up on Big Bubbler should act the same as sub power-up for the beacon in the middle. Same for sub power-up. If you have like 2 subs of sub power-up on a bubble weapon, it should affect the beacon. So sub and special power-up gives the effect onto the bubbler beacon, so you can jump faster to it. Zipcaster and Inkjet, pairing these together. I would slightly buff these, reducing the, recall time. The recall is a lot of downtime, and it's good that you can punish it, but I feel like it takes you out of the action for a long time. It's a bit of an unnecessary downside. So my idea is like once the caster is done, that little super jump you do back, that's just 33 frames faster. Like all of that, or not 33 frames, 33% faster. So it's a little less downtime, that's all. Small change to both. Crab, I would nerf Crab's duration from 8 to 7.5 seconds. I think it lingers a little long, I think Crab is a little too strong. That'd be a small change to do to it. And then finally, Cooler. I would have Cooler's stand duration match the cooldown, be 10 seconds. It's more intuitive. You could call exactly when your cooler was going to expire based off your cooldown. And I think the stand lingering less long makes it a little more punishable since the window to grab it is smaller. That'd be a very fair slap on the wrist to make Tacticooler more fightable while keeping it a very powerful special. And that's it. That's one change that I would do to every sub, special, and main weapon. I didn't think too hard on this, admittedly. I wanted to kind of just pick something that wasn't too hard to think up, and it was fun. So, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what changes you want to see below. Goodbye.